The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards, when the sons of God, the B'nai HaElohim, saw the daughters of men, took wives, that's plural, went into them in the biblical sense, and produced a hybrid being known as the Nephilim. I'm your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. Welcome to another episode. Our very special guest today is Josh Turner. He's been on the show before, and I've been on his show, so we're doing a little cross-pollination. It'll be a two-parter. The first half is free. The second half, of course, is by subscribers only. Thanks so much for watching. We'll get into this, but first, a word from our very trusted sponsor. You probably think your 401k is safe, that it's growing, that it'll be enough for your retirement. But what if it's not? Here's the truth, folks. Your 401k was never designed to make you wealthy. It was created in a corporate boardroom to shift retirement costs and investment risks onto you. Designed to keep your money trapped, exposed to Wall Street crashes, inflation, and uncertainty you can't control. Until now. Folks, Americans are taking back control by turning to real assets like gold. Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands protect your future by converting part of their retirement savings into physical gold. Talk to Noble Gold today and learn how safe and easy it is to roll over your 401k into a tax-advantaged gold IRA without penalties or headaches. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com to get your free wealth protection kit, including a step-by-step guide to get started. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. It's time to get your money out of the danger zone and into something real. And folks, get rewarded for getting started. Open a qualified account at noblegoldinvestments.com, and Noble Gold will send you 2 5-ounce Silver America, the beautiful coins free. Once again, folks, noblegoldinvestments.com. Josh, thanks so much for coming on the record here. This whole thing with the Nephilim, and let me just kind of lead up to this. So 45 years ago, I became a Christian, and I'm reading the Bible for the first time, and I get to the flood of Noah, and I go, what? What? Why is he destroying the planet? What do these people do that was so bad that he destroys the planet, except for 8 people? So I kind of like hanging on to my hat here. And at this time, I'm reading the Old Testament, but I'm also reading a New Testament simultaneously. So I'm going from, Matthew in the New and Genesis in the Old. And then I get to the Tower of Babel, and I go, wait a minute. What did these people do that was so bad? And then just a couple of chapters later, you get the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. It's like, whoa, what is this? And then finally, the conquest of Canaan. I'm ready to chuck the Bible across the room and become a Buddhist. I mean, Jesus I get. There's other stuff I don't. It would be 10 years. No pastor I went to could answer the question. And then I finally found Dr. I.D.E. Thomas's book, The Omega Conspiracy, life-changing book, who presented what the Nephilim were. Tell us about your journey, because, you just don't start off, hey, here are the Nephilim. It's the churches don't talk about it for the most part. So how did you tell us your discovery?
Well, I've been on your show before, and I talked about what happened to me when I was 15 years old. I saw something that looked like I don't want to say dog man, even though that term is very popular and a lot of people are throwing it around. It looked like an upright canid.
Right.
And, my friend that saw it with me, he is now a preacher in my hometown, and he's very visiting.
Yeah. You went from being Catholic. I
believe. He became an evangelist, and me and him were locked up like 4 times. I was like 4 times, him like 3 as kids. And so when the last time I got locked up, it was after that. And I started reading a lot, and I read the Bible. And when I was locked up was the first time I had heard the words Enoch, that I really stuck with me. Yeah. And I was 16. And I had made a commitment to myself, like, I'm not going back to get in trouble, and if you stay out of trouble as an adult, then you don't have that record, and so that's what I did. And so I turned my life over. Now, even though I was a knucklehead in my early 20s, I changed my life completely. Yeah. By the time I was mid-20s, and then by the time I was 30, I had a company, a voracious reader. And so I figured out that the book of Enoch was the long version of Genesis 6.
Yeah, I do.
And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. Enoch and these giants, they literally petitioned, the fallen. Some people call them the archons, or the Nephilim. And then some people even say that they're the Anunnaki from the Sumerian tablets, whatever. What they did was they petitioned this man that was close to God. And they said, hey, have him have mercy on us. And he was like, I'll try. And then he told God, of course, and God was like, these sins are so egregious. And when you first read that, you're thinking, man, God is being really hard on these dudes. Then you stop and you think, look at all of the horrible things they brought on the earth. It is immeasurable, immeasurable. And it went against what we know to be good and righteous. And there was nothing good about what they did. And they protected the offspring that they had brought on the earth that wreaked havoc. I mean, just absolute hell on earth. And I do believe that there were some that weren't bad. I do believe that. And the mighty men of renown, I believe that's going back to Norse, Greek mythology. But for the most part, they were overwhelmingly evil.
Yeah.
And deranged, and they were cannibalistic. They would eat the humans that were smaller than them. And, when Caleb and Joshua were in the land of Canaan, they saw some of these beings. This is after the flood. This is not, this is not antediluvian. This is after, and they saw them and they said, we're like grapes. We're like, we're like bugs or grasshoppers, and so you stop and you see this and you look at it through the correct lens and you're going like, oh my gosh, dude. If you think about all of the evil that they did, and it says in Revelation that the days of Noah, right? It's going to be that way again. It's when Jesus returns, and you can look around and see it everywhere. I mean, it is everywhere. And so I do believe that the uptick in people, I used to think it was just maybe the internet, more people had the internet. So they were like, well, there's all these people that can talk about it because they have access to the internet. So more people are talking about it. That may be part of it. The other thing is maybe there's more people. So I just kept rationalizing it. And then I thought about it and I was like, I honestly can't say now that that's what it is. I think that there's an uptick in the evil that's on our planet. It's like a scourge. And every day people are sending me emails for the show and telling me, hey, that I saw this creature. I saw this demon looking thing. Literally just last night we had a show. A woman had seen this goat-headed creature. She was in Italy, and then she saw this werewolf-looking thing that was kind of walking behind a curtain or whatever. And I tell people, I was like, dude, that has happened now. This goat-headed entity, four accounts in the last 5 weeks that I got a report of this goat-headed entity.
Different places.
Different places, yeah. And what's crazy too, it if you stop and you look at this, it's like the Baphomet
thing. Yeah, I was going to say.
And I've told people before, in movies and in television, you'll see them showing the breasts of the woman, but they'll only show the male genitalia. And it's a subconscious thing because that is Baphomet. It represents this hybrid sort of,
Chimera.
Yeah, chimeric, and it's like a transgender thing. And I'm open about being very against these things because I do believe that they pollute your mind and they get into your mind space with this, and it becomes a subconscious thing to accept it and to be okay with it. Just a few days ago, my cousin's wife reported someone showing a male genitalia on Facebook, and they were just like, "Oh, it doesn't go against community standards." But if you said something about, the COVID or the vaccine,
That's against community standard. I mean, you banned instantly, right?
how does that? You're in trouble for that. Yeah. So you sit there and you go like, where is the morality? It is absolutely gone, and you can 100% see that the morality is out the window and what they are doing. It's like and some people would say it's like a psyop. And if you stop and you look at the uptick in the accounts that you get of these just focus on that for a minute, the upright Canids. It is so prevalent now. And you have people even coming out and saying, I've shot one of these things. And when they shoot these things, LA, I'm going to tell you, man, it is so, there's like this black powder or black goo that'll come out of it. Now,
Wow.
We did some research, deep dives into this. We had some people come forward that were part of this lycanthropy cult. And they really, now I haven't seen this, I haven't witnessed this, but there are people who swear up and down that they can shapeshift, and they do it through this power, this dark power. And they say that your blood becomes like this black goo. And what they do is this they call it the other. It attaches itself to the spine, and it literally is connecting symbiotically with a demon. And what's so crazy is these people were telling us at first it was really unnerving. I don't know how you get used to it, but they said this thing would unattach at night and be moving around their house, and they would see this shadow looking thing with horns. And then this thing goes and reattaches itself to them and helps them shapeshift into whatever it is that they're trying to shapeshift to. One of the people that we talked to that was part of this, she was her name was Eve, and she was vampiric. She did the blood drinking and all that. And she said that there were different types of entities, and one of them creates a thirst in you for blood. And she was the one that referred to it as a parasite. And I thought that is absolutely what's happening. It's happening physically, mentally, and spiritually to all of us, and they're doing it to our children. And there is a bloodline that I believe comes from the Nephilim, and I believe it still runs through the humans. Now, this could have been something that happened after Noah, something that happened. Maybe these beings from interdimensional, wherever they come from. Some people call them aliens, some people call them demons. And what they do is they made a hybridization with people so that I believe that humans could be easier vessels for them to do this attachment and become. I believe a lot of politicians are perfectly possessed. I really do. I don't think that they're just meat puppets. They're not even like humans anymore. And I think that it's real prevalent with a certain political affiliation. I'm not going to get political, but that I do believe that that's where a lot of it comes from, because look at the lunacy. What makes you think that it would be okay to celebrate and dance around and look like Baphomet and then go read to children and all this other junk that they're doing? I do believe that there is a war. And Jesus tells us there is a spiritual war. It's around us,
Absolutely.
constant warfare going on. And so getting these accounts and having people come on and tell them, I know at one point we open up the lines on Monday on the show, right? And so 3 weeks in a row, we had a different person come on and tell us a vampiric encounter with something. And I used to think it was so rare. And now I'm looking and I'm going like, and I'm almost done with my book about vampires. And I'm sitting here going like, dude, this is what they are. They are vampiric entities. They steal energy from you.
Yeah.
They steal your life force, and they drink your blood. And I'm telling you, these people, these wacky people out there on the West Coast, not you, LA, you're one of the good ones, but you're surrounded by the enemy, my friend. I mean, they're out there. And they disparage people like you and I because we are in the front lines fighting this, and we're bringing this information out. When you're over the target, you're over the truth, you're going to get flack. And the more I've talked about this subject, the more I've been attacked and attacked. And attacked. I'm telling you, these people will stop at nothing. They are obsessed, and a lot of them have nothing to gain by it. So it's demonically influenced. And what they do is basically act like a puppet for these principalities in high places that are doing these dark things. They want to shut you down. They want to stop you from saying it, because it's bringing people to the truth. It's bringing to light what these people are doing, what they are. It is unbelievable how much of this is happening. People being stalked and attacked and chased by monsters, literally monsters. And people will say, well, this can't possibly exist. One guy, he worked at a tire shop, and I remember covering this case a few months ago. And this guy, I haven't gotten him on yet. I'm going to try to get him on, but he's real busy. He runs a business up in Indiana, and he was talking about seeing this shadow being around the place. Eventually, it got worse. And he ended up seeing it full on when he was coming out of the restroom one morning.
Wow.
He said it was cold as heck. So he had the heater going, and it got nice and warm in there. Then he comes out, and he thought the heater was broken because all the heat was gone, and it was this 7-foot tall demonic entity. When he began to describe it to me, this thing looked like Baphomet. I mean, I'm not joking.
Wow.
And so there could be like a race of these beings, like that was created by the Nephilim and what they, and people don't realize there's like this bloodline. There's this bloodline that continues and they propagate, and people don't realize that. They think, well, this is a spiritual entity. They don't, procreate. They do, and they make more, and they make more. And I'm telling you, there are a ton of these beings. There's a lot of them, and people don't realize either that when a third of the angels fell, that's the rebellious angels. When we're talking about the Nephilim, we're talking about the fallen being the 200 watchers that fell. And of course they were, convinced that they would get away with this, and they were supposed to be watching Satan and what he was doing and keeping us safe, and instead they fell in league. Yeah, and they did what they did. So you're talking about a huge legion of these creatures, either rebellious descended or fallen descended, and they become a huge problem for humanity. And that is why the Bible tells us that, in my opinion, right, this is what I believe, and this is the conclusion I came to. I believe that it tells us, hey, there's a problem, and it's going to be as bad, if not worse, than it was in the days of Noah. And of course, the flood had to come, but obviously we didn't learn our lesson, and reading about it doesn't do any good. So here we are again, round two, and we're going to be inundated with these things. And of course, it says that the men's hearts will fail. Like, that's what's happening. I've had people tell me, man, I saw this thing in the backseat while I was driving. A guy was driving on the what is it, the Pacific Coast Highway, and he was driving. He's a beautiful drive with my wife, and I look back in my back seat, and there's this wolf-like creature there, nearly wrecked. Guy, I've known him for years, a good friend of mine, and I couldn't believe what he was telling. His name's Caleb, and Caleb told me that, and I said, dude, this is crazy. He goes, I've never, because he saw this one time when he was out hunting out in East Texas. He saw something like that, and he says, why would it show up in my vehicle? What I tell people is this: they think it's a physical being. They think it is just a flesh and blood being, but it is a very metaphysical being. And what people don't understand also is that we are literally that too. We are a house, a vessel that houses a spirit.
Sure.
And we are not a just walking around puppet. Now, you can be if you accept something that comes to you and you don't rebuke it in the name of Christ. You don't get rid of it. You don't, cleanse it, whatever. You become that, and it takes over. What he saw in East Texas, he says this thing had literally spoke to him.
Wow.
In his mind, and it told him, it's like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. So it got down on all fours because it was standing upright. He had a rifle, right? He was perfectly, capable of taking this thing out. He had a 6.5, and he said, look, I had it aimed at this thing, and this thing was like, oh, calm down, I'm just a wolf. And then it got down and moved around like a wolf and went into the woods. He goes, but it wasn't a wolf. He goes, and then 2 more times afterwards, he saw it. The second time he was in California driving with his wife, going, they were going up this real pretty, going to Pismo. And he said the third time was when he was up in Eugene, Oregon. That happened 2 years later when his wife's family, they live up there. And he said that we went up there and they said, hey, let's go look for Bigfoot, because her cousin, and that's a Bigfoot hotspot, right? So her cousin says, hey, let's go out there. Let's look for Bigfoot. And people say that it'll show up, and sometimes they'll see this like blurry, like vibrational looking thing, and then it pops up. That right there speaks to the metaphysicalness of this creature. And I do believe these things absolutely trace their bloodline all the way back to those fallen angels, all the way back to the Nephilim. They branched off and split off into different whatever. And you have some that live in the air, some that live on land, and some that live on sea. And where they dwell, that becomes their domain. And I think that if people go into the ocean, the water, whatever, you need to be very cognizant of this, because I'm going to say this, and it may sound absolutely bonkers, but I think they can possess animals too.
Oh, absolutely.
I do.
Of course they can.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people would just be like, well, that's crazy. How could it be? I'm going to tell you this, man. I have heard of sharks chasing people onto the land, beaching themselves to try to grab a particular person. I've heard of alligators doing stuff like this. You read about this stuff, and you get stories from people. This vampiric type entity, or this werewolf like entity, can attach itself even to pets. There have been people's pets who have spun out and just gone nuts. And I tell all of my listeners, I always say this on Paranormal Roundtable. I tell everybody, I was like, plead the blood of Jesus, not only with yourself and your loved ones, but do it for your pets. This morning, I affirmed it for my pets. I do it every day. You have to plead the blood of Jesus over your household, your pets, anything you have, a business, because the Bible said the devil, he's there to steal, kill, and destroy, and he's a liar, and he will take and destroy and ruin your life. And it can happen like that. And if you aren't prayed up, you have no one to blame but yourself.
I agree.
There are people who take days off from that, and I can't even understand that. And I tell my people all the time, I said, don't even take a day off, because if you do, you are opening yourself up. It's a spiritual opening. And when you have that spiritual opening, there is no telling what could happen. I mean, it is very, very, very dark. If you don't have God, I can't imagine walking around out there just unarmed, because if you don't have God, you're unarmed. And I can't imagine that. I know people who tell me, my colleagues, my friends are like, yeah, I don't really, I'm not into Christ and the Bible stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just thinking, geez, Louise, you are a target, and you will be demonically influenced, if not obsessed and possessed. It can easily come to you. And so, yeah, there are good people out there. They're really good people, but they don't have the mindset, the Christ mindset. I talk about it all the time, just being in Christ. Now, do I screw up? Am I a sinner? Heck yeah, man.
We all
Are. They all with the stink. I have vices, dude. I cuss sometimes when I get angry, because sometimes I'm very fervent, and I'll be like, dude, this, it's so annoying. So I don't pretend to be a saint. I have lost my temper, and I've gotten upset with people, but I do feel like we're over the target, that we know what we're talking about. And I tell people all the time, you can't judge a person. I don't judge people. When people come on the show and they'll tell me all this stuff, I don't go, oh, you're a horrible person. No, dude, you're a person. You're a human being. Now, there is a line, right? People who do things to women, to children, there's all this kind of stuff. There's a line you don't cross, and I can't associate with that. But I have my past. I have who I am and what I am. But to me, it's a testament to the power of God, because compared to what I was 20 years ago, this night and
completely different. Same here. Let me stop you right here. Folks, we're just about a half an hour into this. We're going to go into subscribers only. Josh, that was a great rant. I mean, it was just a fantastic testimony. And I want to, bring up some things on the other side once we go into the paid subscription. Folks, you can do that $9.99 a month, and you're in. So, the first part's free, the second half isn't, and we'll get into that. But thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And Josh, thank you. And we'll see you next time.